What's up, guys? This is Simon. In this video, I'm going to talk about drowning in student debt, why student debt is one of the biggest factors that people cannot afford to buy their first home. Or I should say, students that have recently graduated that still are carrying this huge burden of student debt, and what you could do about it, what my thoughts are on student debt, and what is the next step to get out of it to be able to purchase that first home. Now, I mentioned in my past videos that foreclosures were coming. Now, foreclosures are also up 27% since the month before because of the moratoriums ending. So it might be a good time to buy. But if you're in student debt, you probably will not be able to afford to because your debt to income ratio may be killing you. So let's get into some fun facts on student debt. But before I do so, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. As always, I appreciate it. Let's get into this video. So a fun fact, half of the people that have not purchased a home yet blame student debt as their excuse or reason for not being able to buy a home.
People between the ages of 25 and 33, those critical first-time home buyers, can't afford the purchase. They have other bills to handle right now.
When we break it down, the average kid who has debt now is graduating school with $27,000 in debt. That's a mortgage payment right there. So obviously, with that burden, it's very difficult for kids to afford buying a home. It's even hard for them to rent. They're going home, living with their parents, and these boomerang kids are staying there for a while.
That could be for several reasons. It could be because of financing issues, debt to income ratio, not being able to afford a home, or they're simply not even able to keep up with the payments of their student loan. If you know about college loans or student loans, they are through the roof. College costs so much money nowadays, $50,000+ a year. Just a fun fact, student debt accounts for $1.7 trillion.
There is now more than $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. And this isn't just some sort of, young person millennial issue. This really touches every facet of American lives, both individuals, their communities, our economy, and our country.
And young individuals often are the ones that are burdened with the student debt, burdening Americans that recently have graduated or still are not able to pay off their student loans. It's incredible. So $1.7 trillion in debt is acquired through just receiving an education in college. Fun facts again, 60% of millennials say that it holds them back from buying a home, and so does 30% of baby boomers. Now, despite the debt to income ratio, you could still get obviously a home loan, and there's several factors that play into it. For one, you need to understand your student debt education, or you need to understand how you could pay off your student debt or refinance it to a much lower rate, lock it in, etc. So basically, you're trying to lower your monthly payment on your student loans if you don't have the best rates. And by reducing your loan amounts or your rate amounts, you're going to be able to refinance those and then be able to purchase and lower your debt to income ratio and get a loan for the house. So that's the goal. You want to get a loan for the house, but you need to lower your debt to income ratio. The only way is to get rid of that student debt or make it seem like a lesser burden or impact on your credit history. Now, if you haven't check out my credit repair videos. If you have bad credit or no credit, I give you some great points on how to improve your credit score, which is very important as well to getting any loan for any house or anything else for that matter. One way to alleviate the pressure of getting a loan for a house while having a high student debt is saving money for the down payment. So if you come in with a higher down payment, then you're going to be able to potentially get a higher chance of getting that loan because banks like to see you put down more than 10%. They feel more comfortable with that. So if you can knock that loan down by say 20, 30, even 40%, you're more likely to get a mortgage and compete in the still competitive market where cash offers are being made. So loans with contingencies are always looked down on in today's market, which is very scary. If you don't understand what debt to income ratio is, it's basically how much money you owe every month and how much money you make. So banks like to see your debt to income ratio of about 60% where you're making more money to cover your debt. On top of that, they like to see how much of the loan and the value in the house is. And that's why I mentioned by putting more money down, let's say you buy a house for $1 million, instead of putting down $100,000, you say you put down $300,000. The bank is going to say this house is worth $1 million. We feel comfortable giving this individual $700,000 because if they don't pay for it, even if the market turns, we're still going to be able to foreclose, sell the home, and get our money out of what we loaned. Now, there are income-driven repayment plans that you could also look into with your student debt. Those are excellent. There's refinancing options. A lot of small boutique banks will take on your student debt and give you a much lower interest rate and say a 10-year payoff. Those are great. So interest rate really matters nowadays. You could have a low interest rate and pay such a low mortgage that it is so important, knocking off hundreds of dollars from your mortgage. So always try to get the lowest interest rate possible on your student loans as well as your home mortgage. Now, of course, if you can't afford the mortgage, see what your parents could help out with. Look for a smaller home. Get your feet in the real estate game. Even if you can't afford that dream home that is in your mind or in your blueprint, I mentioned blueprint in my videos a lot, you need to get your feet in the game. So you got to go ahead and purchase something. Whether it's an apartment, a condo, or anything that you feel is going to raise in value, it's a great idea. I did a video on buying your first home. It's on my channel as well, so check that video out. The highlight of it is always buy the cheapest house in the best neighborhood. So buy a rundown house that may need some elbow grease and love, that you could repaint, you could remodel a little bit here and there over the course of several years, but buy that house in the best neighborhood. Don't buy the biggest, nicest house in the worst neighborhood. Price of that house is not going to come up to where you're making money. It's not going to happen. So get that rundown old house shack in the best neighborhood, watch it appreciate in value, fix it up over time, and you're going to be able to use that equity for your next investment. So always buy the worst. Sounds crazy, but it makes sense. And if you can't, always try to use your parents for leverage. Ask them to help out. You'll pay them back through equity. You'll be able to take money out and pay them back in a refinance later on. Live at your folks' house for a while saving that rental income. I had to personally, when I was up and coming, live in the warehouse that I was working at for about a year because the San Francisco rates at that time were so through the roof. I saved about $30,000 by living in a warehouse for a year, sleeping on the couch, as crazy as it sounds, showering at gyms, and I saved a whole lot of money to put down on that down payment in my first condo property purchase. And that's the sacrifice you have to make in order to get into the real estate game if you were not born with a silver spoon. And there's nothing wrong with being born with a silver spoon. Just be a humble person, take advantage of everything you've got. But if you have parents that are willing to let you live there, or if you have a friend, etc., take advantage of that as well and try to save up money for that down payment, because that's going to knock off your debt to income ratio, because you're going to be able to pay more down on that house, and that's how you're going to be able to really move forward. Finally, a little tidbit on whether or not college education is worth it. Absolutely, it's worth it. The other day, I was at a house here in Hillsborough, California. The house was from a venture capitalist individual. This individual went to Berkeley, then Stanford. He became a venture capitalist. His house was enormous. It had a crazy pool, a barbecue area that was probably about $80,000 to $100,000, and it had everything you could want for it in a house. And the reason this individual was able to afford that house is because of that Berkeley and Stanford education, because he's able to rub elbows with some of the most elite business people in the world, the networking, etc. And that's what an education at some of these top tier universities does. So if you could get in, it is absolutely worth that you do so. And that is the difference between being a self-made entrepreneur who's hustling, who's grinding, who's going up and down in prices and equity and everything else, and having that struggle of 12-hour workdays, to an individual that has a very good foundation of education, that got into, say, a VC, etc., and really built a huge business by rubbing elbows with some of the most opulent businessmen and collecting on the back end. So education, absolutely important. These companies do look at it. If I had an opportunity, I would have done it maybe a little bit different, just to rub elbows with these people, or maybe I wouldn't, I don't know. But overall, student debt, get out of it. There are ways to refi it. There's ways to really lower your debt to income and save more money for buying your first home. Don't let student debt discourage you from buying your first home, which is very important. And with a lot of opportunities coming up with foreclosures, this may actually be a good time to invest in real estate. Hope you guys like this video. Catch you guys here next time. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment below, subscribe, and I appreciate all the love you send my way. I'll keep doing these videos for you guys. Thank you.